There are moments in life so steeped in grief, they feel like a thick fog you can't see or breathe through. Losing my daughter, Sarah, was that moment for me. She was my youngest, vibrant and kind, taken far too soon. The silence in my house after she was gone was deafening, a constant reminder of the laughter and light she'd brought. In my sorrow, I clung to routine, to the familiar walls of the home I'd lived in for over 30 years, the place where I'd raised both her and my son, David. But grief, I would soon learn, could make you a target. Before we dive into the story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below, and if you believe families should protect, not exploit each other. Hit that like button and subscribe for more. I was still navigating the first, raw waves of mourning when my son, David, and his wife, Clara, began to visit more often. At first, I was grateful. Their presence, though sometimes awkward, filled the void Sarah left. Clara would fuss over me, bringing casseroles I didn't have the appetite to eat, while David would manage small tasks around the house. They spoke of checking in, making sure I wasn't alone, that I was coping. It felt like support, a lifeline in my darkest hour. My history with David and Clara had always been one of quiet generosity on my part. David, though hardworking, had struggled financially over the years, especially since his marriage to Clara. They had 2 children, my grandchildren, whom I adored. I had helped them with down payments, school fees, even covering medical bills when times were tough. My husband, before he passed, had ensured I was comfortable, leaving me the house free and clear, along with a modest but secure investment portfolio. I wasn't wealthy, but I was stable. My home was my sanctuary, filled with memories, its value a significant portion of my security. It was more than just bricks and mortar. It was the repository of my life. I had always believed my assets would eventually pass to my children, but the thought of them ever needing anything now to the detriment of my own stability had never crossed my mind. The first flicker of unease came subtly. Clara, while tidying my living room, commented pointedly on the size of the house for just one person. David echoed her later, mentioning the rising cost of taxes and maintenance. They started talking hypothetically about places I might move to, smaller apartments, condos closer to their suburb. I gently deflected, explaining I wasn't ready to think about changes. My home was my anchor. Then came the suggestion, presented with seemingly genuine concern. "Mom," David started one evening, Clara nodding beside him, "we're worried about you being here all alone. It's a big house. What if something happened?" Clara chimed in, and with all the memories, wouldn't a fresh start be good? Maybe somewhere that requires less upkeep? You could sell this place, get something smaller, and have some extra funds for yourself. It felt like they were trying to solve a problem I didn't have, or didn't yet feel ready to address. My grief was consuming enough. The idea of uprooting felt overwhelming, impossible. I told them, again, that this was my home, where I felt Sarah closest. They dropped it for the moment, but the seed of discomfort was planted. The visits continued, but the undercurrent shifted. Their questions became more probing. They asked about my finances, my investments, my will. I was open, perhaps too open, still seeing them as my support system. I explained I had everything in order, that my will left everything to David, as Sarah was gone. Clara's eyes seemed to linger a moment too long on the mention of everything. One afternoon, David was helping me sort through some of Sarah's belongings in the attic. While ostensibly helping, he spent a surprising amount of time near the old chest where I kept important family documents, old photos, letters, and yes, the deed to the house. I didn't think much of it at the time, attributing it to distraction or nostalgia. The next day, while looking for an insurance paper Sarah had needed, I noticed the lock on the chest was slightly ajar, something it never was. My deed was there, tucked away, but a small, almost imperceptible crease was on one corner, as if it had been recently handled. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Why would David need to look at the deed? He knew I owned the house outright. This was the first crack in my perception of their support. It wasn't just vague suggestions about moving anymore. It felt like an active interest in my property. My grief had made me vulnerable and perhaps, in their eyes, incapable. I started paying closer attention. Their concern about my well-being often circled back to practical matters related to the house or my finances. "Are you sure you can manage the utility bills this month, Mom?" Clara would ask, even though they knew my income was stable. "Have you thought about how property taxes keep going up?" David would add. It felt less like checking in, more like probing for weaknesses, trying to establish a narrative that I was no longer capable of managing my own affairs. Then came the incident that solidified my suspicion into certainty. I overheard them talking in my kitchen. They didn't know I was in the adjacent sunroom, unable to sleep and wrapped in a blanket. Clara's voice was low, urgent. "Did you find it? The paperwork?" David sighed. "Not the specific one. The chest was right there, but I couldn't find the original deed itself, just some copies. She must keep it somewhere else." "Copies aren't enough, David. We need the original." The lawyer said it makes things so much cleaner. "Especially with her." Clara's tone was dismissive, bordering on contempt. "She's fragile right now. It's the perfect time. We just need her to agree, or sign, or what? Force her." David sounded less certain. "Not force, manipulate." Clara snapped, her voice rising slightly before she lowered it again. "Guide her towards a decision that's best for everyone. This house is sitting here, doing nothing. It's a huge asset. We need a bigger place for the kids, and this is the key. We just need her to understand she can't manage it anymore, that it would be less stress to sell it and let us help her." "What if she won't? What if she gets suspicious?" David worried. "She won't," Clara said, her voice dripping with confidence. "She's too lost in grief. She trusts us. We just need to keep pushing, gently. Make her see sense. And find that deed." My blood ran cold. My state doing nothing, manipulate her. It wasn't grief support, it was reconnaissance. They weren't trying to help me, they were trying to take advantage of my sorrow, to strip me of my independence and my home. They saw my grief not as pain, but as an opportunity. The world tilted. This wasn't just about money, it was a profound betrayal by the two people I had left who were supposed to love and protect me. My first instinct was hurt, deep and searing. How could they? After everything? Then came a quiet, unfamiliar anger. They were vultures, circling the weakest point, my broken heart. But underneath the hurt and anger, something else stirred, a steeliness I hadn't known I possessed. My daughter was gone. My husband was gone. My home was all I had left of the life I'd built. I would not let them take it. I didn't confront them immediately. The overheard conversation felt like a secret weapon they didn't know I possessed. My immediate priority was securing the key they were looking for, the deed. I went straight to my bedroom, to a small, fireproof safe tucked away in the back of my closet. I opened it. My passport, important papers, and yes, the original warranty deed for the house, were all there, safe and sound. David must have only found copies in the attic chest. A wave of relief washed over me, quickly followed by grim determination. They wanted the deed? Fine. I would use the deed. I needed help. I couldn't navigate this alone, especially not against people willing to plot against me in my own home. The next morning, I called Mrs. Peterson, an elderly neighbor whose sharp mind and no-nonsense attitude I'd always admired. She recommended her own lawyer, a specialist in elder law and property rights named Mr. Harrison. Meeting Mr. Harrison felt like stepping into a calm harbor after being tossed in a storm. He listened patiently as I recounted the subtle pressures, the overheard conversation, the searching for the deed. He didn't dismiss my fears as grief-induced paranoia. He believed me. "Their interest in the deed is concerning," Mr. Harrison said, leaning forward. "An original deed is crucial for property transfers, mortgage applications, or even attempting fraudulent filings. The fact they were looking for it and speaking about you needing to agree or sign suggests their intentions are far from innocent. He explained my options. My ownership was clear and undisputed as long as the deed remained in my name and secure. They couldn't simply take the house. However, they could potentially cause significant legal trouble, filing false claims, challenging my competency, or attempting to pressure me into signing something. He advised immediate, quiet action. First, he instructed, we need to ensure the deed is not only safe with you, but that the property records at the county office are clean and explicitly show you as the sole owner with no recent activity or pending claims. He also suggested depositing the original deed with his office for safekeeping, removing it entirely from my home. Over the next few weeks, I worked with Mr. Harrison. He handled the official checks at the county recorder's office. The news was good. The deed was indeed still solely in my name, and there had been no attempts to file anything against the property recently. This confirmed they were still in the planning stages, still looking for the original deed or trying to figure out how to get me to sign something. I brought the original deed to Mr. Harrison's office. Handing it over felt like relinquishing a physical weight, replacing it with the security of professional protection. While this was happening, David and Clara continued their subtle campaign. They started bringing up the idea of assisted living facilities, claiming I was forgetful, a cruel twist of gaslighting, as my memory was perfectly fine, focused intensely on their deceit. They even suggested they handle my finances, just to simplify things for me during my difficult time. I deflected their suggestions calmly, using phrases Mr. Harrison had advised. I'm comfortable here for now, or I have my finances well in hand. Thank you. My new calm seemed to frustrate them. They escalated their tactics. One afternoon, David arrived looking distressed. Mom, we have a problem. A big one, and he launched into a fabricated story about needing emergency funds for a sudden, urgent repair on their house, something about a collapsing foundation wall that needed immediate work, costing a sum eerily close to a significant chunk of my savings. Clara arrived shortly after, adding layers of panic detail, tearfully describing their children's safety being at risk. They looked at me with expectant eyes. This was their fake emergency, designed to exploit my maternal instincts and access my cash. The old me, steeped in grief and trust, might have panicked and written a check. The new me, armed with awareness and legal advice, saw the desperate performance for what it was. I remembered the conversation about the house being the key and needing extra funds. This wasn't for a repair. This was to unlock my funds, probably as a stepping stone to gaining control over everything, perhaps using the house as collateral if they could get me to co-sign or, failing that, eventually forcing a sale. I looked at them, my face carefully neutral. That sounds very serious, I said slowly. Have you gotten quotes? Spoken to your insurance? They stumbled over answers. They hadn't called insurance yet. The contractors needed cash up front. It was an emergency, no time for quotes. Their story frayed at the edges under the slightest scrutiny. Well, I said, standing up. My voice was quiet but firm. My financial advisor handles all my investments and significant transfers now. For my own peace of mind, you understand. Especially now, it wasn't entirely true yet, but it was a boundary I was establishing. You'll need to speak to him. I'll give you his number, but he'll require documentation, estimates, everything. It's his policy for any large withdrawals. Their faces fell. The panic vanished, replaced by thinly veiled frustration and anger. Your financial advisor? David repeated, his voice sharp. Since when? Since I decided I needed a bit more structure, I replied evenly. It simplifies things for me. I didn't offer the number. I didn't offer sympathy. I had seen the plot unfold in their eyes. Disappointment, calculation, then renewed determination. The emergency was a bust, but they wouldn't stop. Mr. Harrison had anticipated this kind of tactic. He had helped me establish a new, separate bank account requiring 2 signatures for any large withdrawals, mine and a trusted party, in this case, his paralegal, acting as a temporary safeguard. My main investment accounts now had higher security protocols. My next move was strategic, focusing entirely on securing the deed, the key to the house. Mr. Harrison prepared a quiet legal action. It wasn't aggressive, not yet. It was preventative. He filed a formal declaration with the county land office, referencing my original deed, held securely in his office, and stating explicitly that I was the sole owner, that there were no other parties with legal interest, and that any documents filed subsequently claiming otherwise should be flagged for immediate investigation and require my verified signature in person at the county office. It was a legal moat around my property. While this was processing, I continued my quiet documentation. I noted every visit, every intrusive question, every manipulative comment. I saved every text message. I even started leaving a small digital voice recorder running during their visits, hidden discreetly. Mr. Harrison advised against using recordings in court without careful consideration, but having them was a comfort, further evidence for myself that I wasn't imagining things. Then came the turning point, the moment I knew I had them cornered, using the very thing they sought. Mr. Harrison received an alert from the county land office. Someone had attempted to file a document related to my property. It wasn't a full deed transfer, but something attempting to place a lien or a claim, referencing a fabricated debt or agreement. The attempt was sloppy, poorly executed, and crucially, lacked my verified signature. The system flagged it, thanks to the declaration Mr. Harrison had filed. This was the smoking gun. They weren't just talking and planning. They were actively trying to encumber or gain control of my property through fraudulent means, believing perhaps that with my grief and perceived isolation, I wouldn't notice until it was too late, or that I would be too overwhelmed to fight. Mr. Harrison moved swiftly. He immediately filed a formal objection with the county, citing the fraudulent filing attempt and requesting a full investigation. He also drafted a cease and desist letter, detailing the manipulation, the attempted fraudulent filing, and stating clearly that any further contact regarding my property or finances must go through his office. It wasn't just a warning, it was notice that I was aware, protected, and ready to act legally. The letters were served on David and Clara by a process server on a Tuesday afternoon. I wasn't there, deliberately choosing to be out, shopping with Mrs. Peterson. I wanted to be far away when they read them. The phone calls started soon after. Frantic, angry messages flooded my voicemail. David demanded to know what I was doing. Clara accused me of being paranoid, of listening to outsiders, of forgetting family. They called me cruel, ungrateful, cold-hearted. They threatened to challenge my mental competency, to tell everyone I was squandering their inheritance. I didn't answer. Mr. Harrison had instructed me not to. Any communication now had to be through him. The true climax came not in a courtroom, but in the abrupt silence that followed. The threatening calls stopped. Mr. Harrison received one furious call from a lawyer David and Clara had hastily consulted. Their lawyer quickly realized they had overstepped, attempted fraud, and had no legal standing. My title was clean, the deed was secure, and my documentation was thorough. Their plan had backfired spectacularly, directly because of my quiet, strategic moves focused on protecting the property they coveted. Their lawyer informed Mr. Harrison that David and Clara would cease all contact and abandon any claims or actions regarding my property or finances. They had failed. They had tried to use my home as their stepping stone, but I had used the deed, their coveted key, to build an impenetrable wall. The aftermath was quiet, just as my defense had been. My home was secure. The attempted fraudulent filing was officially dismissed and flagged in the county records. My financial accounts were safe. David and Clara, facing potential legal repercussions and the knowledge that I knew exactly what they had tried to do, retreated. Word of their actions and my response filtered through the extended family, mostly through the necessary legal filings and the embarrassed silence from David and Clara. There was no dramatic confrontation, No grand reconciliation attempts. The relationship was severed, replaced by a profound, chilling absence. They had shown me who they truly were, and I had shown them that my quiet grief did not equate to weakness. I remained in my home, the walls no longer feeling like a potential prize for exploiters, but once again, my sanctuary. I had lost my daughter, a pain that would never fully heal, but I had not lost myself, my dignity, or the security of my home. My hard-won wisdom had protected me. The house and the deed that proved my ownership became symbols of my resilience. I was safe, not because they had a change of heart, but because I had quietly, methodically, turned their greed for my deed into their undoing. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this story, give this video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself.